Hey, welcome to the House Environment and Transportation Committee for Friday, March 8th, 2024. We will start with Delegate Chisholm, HB 885, Agricultural Land and Programs, People's Republic of China. If you have a panel, feel free to bring them up.
There you go. Thank you, sir. I don't believe I have anybody live, and I think we might have a couple virtual, but for the record, I'm Delegate Brian Chisholm here to present HB 885, which has been heavily amended. It's no longer the People's Republic of China or the CCP. It includes the ITAR, which is the International Traffic in Arms Regulation. This bill was heavily amended to include several different countries. And it's been amended also to include all the partial and full embargoed countries, and also to include the special section abrogating the bill if federal law preempts it. I've included that in all the documents that were sent over to you. This bill simply prohibits these adversarial countries from buying farmland in the state of Maryland. It's referenced in the physical note. The Farm Service Agency's most recently available annual report from December 31st, 2022, similarly indicates that more data is needed in order to better understand the impacts of foreign investments in the U.S. agricultural land on family farms and rural communities. Thus, this bill simply aims to safeguard Maryland's critical agricultural assets more close to home in the state of Maryland. So the question we need to ask here is the threat real? On January 31st, 2024, FBI Director Christopher Wray warned Congress that foreign adversaries has attempted to infect and target Americans' critical infrastructure. The Department of Homeland Security recently emphasized supply chain risks that could be negatively impacted to our food supply. So why should we be concerned here in Maryland? Also from the physical note, the top 15 Chinese foreign investors as of December 31st, 2022 contains 2,008 acres of land held in Maryland, 505 acres in Charles County, 1,503 acres in Prince George's County. One company in Maryland in particular that does business with several Maryland farmers is Syngenta. Syngenta is on public record as a Chinese-owned company. It was acquired by ChemChina, a Chinese state-owned enterprise, in 2017 for $43 billion. That provides a significant amount of farming products in Maryland. This could be a tremendous risk to our homegrown food supply here in Maryland. Let me go on public record and just say, I am not emphasizing or suggesting that they're doing anything illegal or nefarious here, but I will say they have found themselves in the press quite often recently. This is from The Guardian, February 7th, 2024, just a couple weeks ago. U.S. court bans 3 weed killers and finds EPA broke law in approval process specific to 3 dicamba-based weed killers produced by Bayer, BASF, and Syngenta. Syngenta was aware of potential risks associated with the widely used pesticide paraquat, including links to Parkinson's disease. Documents indicate that the company may have engaged in strategies to protect sales of the pesticide, including influencing regulatory environments and refuting external scientific research. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to abrogate the bill if federal law preempts, so we don't just leave it to the feds. As from the report produced by the U.S. Government Accountability Office, the GAO, the U.S. government faces challenges in tracking foreign purchases of farmland, which raises concerns about national security. Foreign investment in U.S. agricultural land has increased significantly, with ownership growing almost 50% since 2017. However, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and National Defense agencies lack comprehensive information on which countries are investing in agricultural land. This is from an NPR report in 2023. What's missing here is a lot more information about where these specific locations or farmland purchases are located in close proximity to military bases, said Craig Singleton, China Program Deputy Director and Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He said one big fear is that China telecommunications equipment could be used to disrupt U.S. military communication. Dr. Phil, who was obviously no right-wing conspiracy guy, was just recently on Joe Rogan pointing out on a diagram and a map all of the land is being purchased by some of our foreign adversaries close to these military installations. If you think about national security as a human body, Maryland really is at the heart of that human body. We have NSA, we have Fort Meade, we have Naval Academy, we have Andrews Air Force Base, and Washington, D.C. right next to us. Although Chinese-owned land is a tiny fraction of all foreign-owned land in the U.S., its purchases have raised fears about the Chinese government could have control through Chinese corporations over U.S. assets or gain access to U.S.-based information. Corporations own the majority of that land. Now legislation in Congress would restrict Chinese ownership of U.S. land. This legislation is being worked on by both Democrats and Republicans. Both sides emphasize the need to safeguard American interest and enhance U.S. competitiveness, most notably emphasizing the importance of distinguishing between Chinese government and its people. I think we all agree that that is a very important aspect of what I'm proposing. This is from Maria Bartiromo's report yesterday on Fox Business News with Mornings with Maria. This was during an interview with an Arizona sheriff. We've had 192 million fentanyl pills come across the southern border last year. The U.S. had 73,654 deaths from fentanyl overdose. Although I think we should call fentanyl poisoning. It's not an overdose anymore. This is poison. There are very dangerous CCP gangs called snakeheads that are a subsection of the Chinese gang triad gangs. They specialize in smuggling people and drugs. They smuggle people from China into Turkey, then into Mexico, and turn them over to the Mexican cartels. The Mexican cartels get them across the U.S. border while pushing the drugs and the fentanyl across with them. Kansas is seeing an explosion of what they call weed farms, where they have smuggled individuals and are being exploited for farm labor or land controlled by some of these foreign adversary countries and are trying to prevent, and that we're trying to prevent from buying property here in Maryland. The bill could prove to be a very meaningful step to protect our farmlands. The good news is I did talk to the Maryland Agricultural Secretary. He says that there's still about 96.5% of our agricultural land is owned by our Maryland families. And this bill is just a small step to keep it that way, to keep not only our state safe, but keep our country safe. With that, I ask for a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. I should note there are some colleagues from Economic Matters here as well. Any questions for the sponsor? Okay, you do have some virtual witnesses. We'll turn to Jacqueline Deal. You have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to the delegates. It's an honor to testify before you. My name is Jackie Deal, and I've spent my career researching the Chinese Communist Party's military, but I've come to realize through that study that China doesn't just compete at the military level or symmetrically, as Delegate Chisholm just noted, citing FBI Director Wray. It competes more comprehensively in the economic and technology domain with a heavy emphasis on intelligence, subversion, and other asymmetric or non-conventional and sub-conventional approaches to conflict. So land purchases, as you just heard, confer proximity to military installations. And from my reading of the latest data available from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Chinese investors in Maryland appear to own over 1,000 acres bordering Joint Base Andrews in Prince George's County. And the website on this development project actually boasts that the development is only 1 mile south of the base. Another 500-acre development is just across the Potomac from the Dahlgren Naval Surface Warfare Center in Virginia. Land purchases, as Delegate Chisholm noted, can also be can be vehicles for other nefarious activities as well. And I just want to kind of underscore, you don't have to be an expert on the Chinese military or the Chinese Communist Party strategy to recognize that there's a problem here. This is also a matter of basic fairness. China doesn't allow domestic property, private property ownership, much less foreign ownership. Americans can't own land over there. If we hope and aspire for the Chinese people one day to have private property rights, like people in Maryland do, and then the rest of the United States. We're never going to get there if we don't create costs or restrictions, but rather say they can exclude us, but have all the access in the world to our rights and privileges here. Why wouldn't we just have a reciprocity principle? So that's my 2 cents, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And thank you again for the opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll turn to Leo Hajnowski. Apologize for butchering your last name. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, and that was correct. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and honorable members of this committee. I am from Baltimore County and graduate from University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC, in May. It has been 2 years since the UMBC's Student Senate and Finance Board each unanimously passed a resolution to recognize the ongoing Uyghur genocide being perpetrated by the Chinese government and call on the university's administrators to return our institution to its stated mission of cultural and ethnic diversity, social responsibility, and lifelong learning. These resolutions asked administrators to investigate their direct holdings, managed funds, and other financial instruments for evidence of complicity in forced labor, reject intimidation of students by the Chinese government on campus, and end research collaborations contributing to the genocide. Since that time, I have personally met with 2 university presidents, my university's Vice President of Institutional Advancement, the University System of Maryland's Board of Regents, and many others charged with the duty of maintaining and improving our great system of public universities. At every level, administrators have been unable or unwilling to help. It is for this reason I have come to testify in favor of this bill, to represent the interest Maryland students have in safeguarding our public and private institutions against the most horrific abuses of human rights and the people who would profit from them. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Your third virtual witness is not here, Delegate. Seeing no questions, that concludes the bill hearing on HB 885. We'll now turn to our own Delegate Jacobs, HB 1221, Battery Storage and Solar Arrays Safety Training Grant Program and Fund. All right now.
Wherever you like. There's a couple seats there. Okay, Mike, you got it. Bruce. Also, Bruce Barriano is supposed to be, but I don't see him here. He's testifying on behalf of Caroline. All right. Good afternoon, Chairman Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and the members of Environment and Transportation Committee. Today, I'm presenting House Bill 1221, Battery Storage Solar Arrays Safety Training Grant Program and Fund for the purpose of establishing the Battery Storage and Solar Arrays Safety Training Grant Program in the Maryland Energy Administration to provide grants to the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute to train local fire departments on certain safety aspects associated with lithium-ion battery storage systems installed with solar arrays. Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute will consult with MDE, the Maryland Fire Chiefs Association, the Metro Fire Chiefs Association, and individuals with expertise in lithium-ion battery storage safety, including experts from the University of Maryland College of Engineering Department of Fire Protection. The purpose of the Battery Storage and Solar Array Safety Training Grant Program is to train local fire departments on the dangers and hazards of lithium-ion battery storage systems installed with solar arrays and how to respond to emergencies involving such systems. Lithium-ion batteries have been known to cause fires, explosions, arc flashes, electrical shocks, and others from energy storing systems that can expose workers and area residents to toxic chemicals. The McMicken fire is often cited incident that occurred in 2019 in Arizona when the Arizona Public Service battery failure and corresponding explosion left 8 firefighters and 1 police officer hospitalized. Utility scale batteries come with a slew of issues yet to be fully addressed by policymakers. In at least 2 instances, county officials were told by battery operators that if there's a fire in the surrounding area of a solar installation and its battery storage, do not respond with conventional first responders and to instead evacuate the area immediately. Unlike a traditional fire, Utility scale battery fires burn hotter and longer and may discharge a mass of toxic chemicals. Funding for this training program will be administered by MEA and consists of funds primarily from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund. I ask for your favorable vote on this much needed bill.
Thank you, Delegate. If you want your panel to go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Michael Cox. I am here today in my official capacity as the Executive Director of the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute at the University of Maryland. The Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute is the state's comprehensive training and education system for our emergency responders here in the state. Basically, we plan, research, develop, and deliver all hazards training to all of our state's emergency responders. Each year, we train anywhere between 25 to 35,000 people statewide. We do that through 6 of our own full-fledged training academies spread out through the state, as well as through 12 municipal and county-owned training facilities. I'm here today in support of Bill 1221, the lithium-ion, because lithium-ion batteries pose a significant danger both to civilians and our first responders. Any day you could turn on the TV or the radio and hear about a fire somewhere in our country that has involved a lithium-ion battery and regretfully sometimes deaths of civilians. Scooters, electric vehicles, solar arrays, solar panels, everything. Cell phones has these lithium-ion batteries in them now today. And one of the challenges with these is that each of these systems or components need to be handled differently if they do catch fire. So it is imperative that our first responders have the appropriate training for such a diverse product. And it is important for folks to know in our business the structural firefighting tactics that we all have been trained and taught to do not work in situations with this. So in closing, I hope that the House Bill 1221 will receive a favorable report, and I'll answer any questions if anyone has any. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Phillips. I am the Legislative Chair for the Maryland State Firefighters Association. We represent 25,000 plus volunteer firefighters and EMS personnel across this state. As you've heard, Maryland Fire Rescue Institute provides training. They do this for the volunteer fire service as well as others, but they do it for the volunteer fire service. They develop the programs, present them to us so that we have a uniform learning program, and they keep us up to date on all the latest technology. When you take and think about the lithium-ion batteries, they've been around with us for 30 some years, but they're becoming more and more prevalent now. They're everywhere. They're in our handheld devices. They're in our cars, trucks and everything else today. And now we're using them to store energy in solar arrays. This is a unique piece of equipment. It's not your everyday, what we call a Class A fire or Class B fire. We've been working on these for years. We pretty much understand those. This is new technology for us. How do we handle these fires? Anybody can go online and look up all kinds of ways and people's ideas on how to do this. We have Maryland Fire Rescue Institute. They provide us with the best education that anybody's money can buy. And we're very appreciative of that. We would like to have their education. We don't want outside sources coming in that might be teaching us things that are not in compliance with rules and regulations, standards we already have in this state. This bill goes a long way to provide that education for us. On behalf of the MSFA, I would like to ask for your favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bruce Periano, the Candy Man. I'm from Caroline County. I'm here on behalf of Caroline County. I'll be very brief. You've heard me testify before. There have been other pieces of legislation on this matter. Very respectfully, and I mean it from my heart and soul, it is critical that some legislation be passed by this committee and this legislature, this session, dealing with lithium batteries and this whole issue that you've heard about. I know a lot of you feel very strongly about EVs, and I have no problem with that. Well, unfortunately, you need to prepare for the more and more EVs that are going to be there for unfortunate circumstances. As you heard from the testimony of other people, and even in the other bills that you've had considered, there's a crying need for proper safety, training and preparation and equipment to deal with these tragic situations, which are going to happen, unfortunately. And I know that the commissioners of Carroll County feel very strongly about it. One of them is a lifelong firefighter and has had to deal with this. And we would urge a favorable consideration of enacting legislation, meaningful legislation, this session, please, that really will provide that training so that we can be prepared as the number of EVs grow on the roads of our state of Maryland. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the sponsors panel? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing on HB 1221.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll now turn to Delegate Adams, HB 1247, Environment Advanced Clean Cars 2 Program. And if you have a panel, please bring them up, Delegate.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, committee members. For the record, Delegate Chris Adams, I'm happy to present House Bill 1247, titled Environment Advanced Clean Cars 2 Program Application and Enforcement. This is a cross file of Senator Hershey's Bill 1063 that received a hearing, I believe, last week. So I'm bringing this bill today out of respect to the committee. And we know that in this committee, we can move markets with policy that you make here. The difficulty is that recently the Maryland Department of the Environment adopted this Advanced Clean Car 2 program through regulation, through their own rulemaking, and not through the authorization of this committee and the Senate across of this committee. Why is that a problem? Because it presents your committee the first opportunity to evaluate not only the policy, but how you're moving the markets and whether the markets are ready to be moved at this time. Back in 2007, this committee and related committees in the Senate passed a emission standard. And the difference between this bill and that bill is that ultimately the legislature, over I'm sure a few years of deliberation, decided that they were going to make the mandate a registration mandate. In other words, every person that registers a car in the state of Maryland had to meet that 2007 mandate. The wisdom of that is not subject to this hearing, but what I would say to you is that the Maryland Department of Environment is trying to move the market without forcing people that live in this state of Maryland to actually buy a car in the state of Maryland. They can work around this mandate by going to other states and hurting friends like who are sitting next to me, dealers, business owners who are employers in our state of Maryland. At the same time that the Department of Environment is trying to move a market, consumer demand is speaking. The market is speaking to EVs and whether or not they're willing to spend the kind of money that's related to making this change. Consumer demand is slowing, and the state of Maryland's EV charging infrastructure just simply is not ready for prime time. It's the best way for me to describe it. We would have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars as a state to forward fund what it takes to bring the infrastructure in to actually meet the mandates that are in place under this bill. I would share with the committee an article that came out just a couple of days ago on the Hill. Title of this article is "Reality is Forcing Biden to Roll Back His Electric Vehicle Mandate." You could easily ask the committee here today, should we be considering the same policy that nationally is being discussed as we speak? There are two quotes. I don't like reading my testimony, but for the sake of this hearing, I'm going to read two quotes from this article. They have to be convinced, this is the consumer, to accept the severe economic and performance limitations characterizing EVs. They are significantly more expensive than conventional vehicles to purchase, maintain, repair, and even to operate once depreciation costs are included. Under a wide set of operating conditions, cold or hot weather in particular, driving range for a full battery charge is poor. The availability of charging facilities is highly limited, an indication that market forces do not view a large expansion of the EV fleet as likely. Further in the article, apart from the ongoing sharp decline in the market for EVs, the production side is afflicted with severe problems as detailed in a recent online event organized by the American Enterprise Institute. The resource requirements, which include copper, aluminum, lithium, cobalt, nickel, graphite, and more, are staggering, requiring at least 50 tons of the associated ores to produce one EV battery. That number will increase if the EV market grows substantially. Production of batteries will require the mining of ever poorer ores as higher concentration ores are depleted. The price of the resource will rise, perhaps substantially. So, committee members, what I'm saying here, whether you agree or disagree with that article, is that the manufacturers and the dealer networks only have two options if we don't fix this particular issue and fix it fairly soon. The one option would be to use credits to reduce the mandate from 43% down to 30%. The best performing manufacturer, legacy manufacturer right now, sold 5% of EVs in Maryland last year. So I would ask the committee to consider whether it's even possible through credits to get where it is we want to go. The more likely scenario, should we not adopt this piece of legislation, or with the wisdom of this committee, consider the consequences of this regulatory change, is that the markets are going to have to meet this goal by delivering fewer cars in the state of Maryland. Yesterday, you had the Board of Revenue estimates talk about the economic consequences of our economy right now, how it's going to affect our general fund now and into the future. Are we really going to advance policies that cause our tax-paying companies and citizens that want to engage in buying behavior in our state to move to another state? That's a question that I believe this committee has to consider as to whether or not to move this bill favorable, or to take some position, whether it's now or in the near future, to help defend our small businesses and networks. So without further conversation, I'll pass the testimony to my panel. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to be here today and considering our issue.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Thank you for allowing me to testify today in favor of House Bill 1247. I'm Sandy Angelo, dealer operator of 13 automobile franchises in Salisbury, providing employment for over 600 individuals on the Eastern Shore. Despite generating $18 million in sales tax for the state and selling over 10,000 vehicles last year, only 43 of them were electric, less than 1% of our sales. We all want a cleaner environment. However, the transition to EVs in Maryland at the current mandated rate presents significant challenges. We have invested over $2 million in chargers, special tools, training, and inventory to support the sale of electric vehicles on the shore, and have done our part to advance this initiative. Unfortunately, the demand just isn't there for many reasons: affordability, practicality, charging challenges, fire hazards, etc. We currently have over a 200-day supply of electric vehicles in our inventories that we can't sell. People who have purchased them are trading them back in at alarming rates and suffering huge depreciation. The current law mandates manufacturers to allocate a minimum of 43% EVs by 2026. This law will force the manufacturers to deliver our normal 43% of gas vehicles to other states where our customers can still purchase them, title them in Maryland, drive them in Maryland. The law does nothing to change the CO2 emissions in this state. It will just put dealers out of business and our employees out of work. A business should never have their state government working against them to send their customers to other businesses to buy cars, nor force jobs to be lost. Maryland does not have the infrastructure in place to force this transition and will never be able to legislate demand. To avoid these negative consequences, I urge the committee to report favorably on this bill to allow more time for the transition to electric vehicles. Thank you.
Damon, look at that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Damon Lester, and I'm the owner of Nissan of Bowie located in Bowie, Maryland. I'm here today in support of House Bill 1247. And as a requirement from our manufacturer, which is Nissan, we are well underway creating our charging infrastructure, which will exceed well over $400,000 in expense, with an additional amount of money to be spent on special tools and safety infrastructure. My biggest concern is the impact this program will have on our inventory. It is unlikely that my manufacturer will have the battery capacity to deliver 43% EVs by the fall of 2026. The only real option the manufacturers have to achieve compliance with the delivery mandate is to send less inventory to my dealership. Any reduction in inventory caused by this program will be devastating to my dealership and my employees. The reduction of inventory by even just 10% will result in layoffs, and many of my customers will go outside of the state to buy vehicles from dealers who have significantly more inventory. This unintended consequence will not result in one additional EV operating in Maryland roads. I think we can all agree that our current charging capacity in Maryland is insufficient. It's going to get better, but it currently is insufficient. However, customers will not purchase EVs unless they're convinced that they can charge them easily. Until we can address the lack of charging capacity, it is unreasonable to believe that any manufacturer will be able to meet the delivery mandates set out in this program. And in conclusion, I want to remind everyone that the Clean Car 2 is a delivery mandate, not a purchase mandate. In the end, it's the customers deciding, not the manufacturers, not the dealers or the government. Thank you for allowing me to testify today, and we would appreciate a favorable support.
Hi, I'm Jeff Bohanka. I have ownership of 12 dealerships in the state of Maryland. I was the 2023 chairman of the National Vehicle Dealers Association, representing 16,000 new car dealers. Nationally, dealers are gearing up for an electric vehicle future, investing $10 billion on training, equipment, charging infrastructure, and inventory. I personally own 2 EVs and drove one here today, but I'm here to support HB 1247. Maryland is now on track to require 43% of new vehicle sales be electric by the fall of 2026, and with an 8% annual increase thereafter. Last year, only about 3% of OEM new vehicle sales were EVs, and that's a long way from 43%. Consumer demand is tepid. Dealers have over 100 days supply of unsold EVs. Currently, 12 auto manufacturers do not even offer EV for sale. Consumer demand is limited by affordability concerns. According to S&P International, payments can be 40% higher for an EV than for a similar gas vehicle from the same brand. Consumer demand is also limited by charging concerns. Many will never have the convenience of home charging. They live in an apartment or rent. The majority of EV owners will have to use the public fast charging system that's more expensive, inconvenient, and sometimes broken. So what will happen when Maryland's EV sales mandates are not met? For OEM manufacturers, they'll simply have to stop selling gasoline-powered vehicles in the state of Maryland when they can't meet the mandate. There won't be enough credits to prevent this. For consumers, they don't like the new car offerings. They'll have 3 choices. 1, keep their old car. 2, buy a used car. 3, go to another state and purchase a new car and bring it back to Maryland. These 3 choices do not help the environment or the Maryland economy. We will simply export our jobs to other states. The best choice for Maryland is to support one national standard. Let the federal government decide what is best, and not California with its unique environmental issues. Support HB 1247. Good for consumers, the environment, and the Maryland economy. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Peter Kitsmiller. I'm the president of the Maryland Automobile Dealers Association. We represent 300 franchise new car dealers, and there are 20,000 employees here today in support of House Bill 1247. I first want to thank Delegate Adams for putting in the bill, and he did an excellent job of explaining, as well as the prior 3 witnesses, the concern about inventory. I just want to point out a couple of things. Number one, this concern about manufacturers shipping in fewer vehicles is not theoretical. It is going to happen absent some kind of change or modification to this program. We currently have one manufacturer that is already limiting the types of vehicles that Maryland dealers can order because we are a Clean Car 2 state. I've always looked at this as a 3-legged stool. There's 3 legs. One is someone has to develop and build EVs. The manufacturers have spent over $100 billion in total. We will have 110 electric vehicle models available for sale in Maryland by the end of this year, from pickups on down to 4-door sedans. So they've done their piece. The second is the dealers. And as you've heard from the individual dealers how much they've spent, my 300 members will spend between last year and this year $100 million in EV infrastructure costs. And we have to get a return on that investment. We're not large enough businesses where we can invest $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 and not get a return. The only way we're going to get a return is to sell EVs in some volume. So we're not here asking you to do something to have us stop selling EVs. That ship has already sailed. We're committed. But the problem is that because of the charging infrastructure, and the lack of, frankly, commitment from the state of Maryland, the third leg of the stool, it's very, very unlikely that we are going to hit on the first year out, hit the 43%. So again, I'm glad that we're able to have this conversation, and we look forward to working with this committee and the Senate to try to come up with some modification to make this program work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mike Johansson. I'll try and wrap up. I'm here on behalf of the Washington Area New Auto Dealers Association. So 3 quick points. We've had several meetings with the Department of Environment and the governor's office. And frankly, I think they're hearing us about the concern, and they're expressing to us they're going to be very flexible enforcement. Manufacturers will have up to 3 years to catch up. Well, from a business perspective, being flexible in enforcement is not the same thing as knowing exactly how you're going to be regulated and treated. If the manufacturers choose not to take the risk that they can make it up, which not meeting it the first year and then trying to double down and get twice as many the second year and 3 times as many the last year, you're not going to get there. We need to know ahead of time so we as dealers can plan for what's happening as well as the manufacturers. Second, with respect to timing, we start a year later than some of the other states. We're model year 27. But as Peter mentioned, some manufacturers, in order to generate these credits, which can reduce their 43% goal in model year 27, can take action to start sending in more cars, EV cars now. Stellantis has already done that. They aren't sending in ICE versions of Grand Cherokee, only plug-in hybrids because they get credits for those. What that means is we are receiving less inventory today, even in advance of model year 27. Lastly, committee and Mr. Chairman, there was a bill in 2021 from Senator Zucker and Delegate Corman that had a mandate for the Maryland Transit Administration to have 100% purchase of zero emission buses in FY 2023. Well, in January 2024, the MTA in a BRFA proposed by the governor is reducing that 100% zero emission bus requirement to 25%, saying the market is not ready for their purchase of 100% zero emission buses. And by the way, the 25% goal in the BRFA is still flexible and may go lower if they can't find even 25% going forward. We're asking for the same type of flexibility. Thank you.
Well, since you brought it up, are you suggesting the BRFA provision should be rejected?
No, I think it's just in recognition of the fact that the industry isn't where maybe we thought it would be.
Okay, so of course, with the buses, their problem is supply, not demand, right?
Well, I think we have a supply issue here. We have both.
I heard the opposite. I thought it was a demand problem.
I said there was.
Well, I appreciate you bringing
both.
up the important bill from Senator
It
Zucker.
was, yes, thank you.
Delegate Stein, first question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks everyone for your testimony. Peter and Mike, I guess I just want to follow up on this credit issue. You know, and as you've implied, MDE has said that in terms of the various credits that are available under Advanced Clean Cars 2, that even if through sales manufacturers aren't able to make the goals for beginning in fiscal year and model year 27, that these credits could get the manufacturers at least close. So maybe, and I know you have a different point of view, so I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on why your position on the effectiveness of these credits and helping manufacturers meet their goals.
Go ahead, Jeff.
They can only buy credits from people who have them. The only people that have credits are the direct sellers like Rivian or Tesla that sell only electric cars, and they represent about 6% of the market. So the 94% of the market, there won't be enough credits for them from the 6%, okay? Because none of the OEMs are going to have enough EVs. They can't sell credits. They have to buy them. So there won't be enough. They don't have unlimited credits. They only get so much for each car they sell. So the 94% can't get it from the 6%. So there won't be nearly enough credits. In fact, probably all the credits have been sold already. So there won't be additional ones as the manufacturers gear up to produce more EVs.
And Delegate Stein, I think, and we'll provide these to the committees, that there have been at least 3 manufacturers that I'm aware of that have publicly stated that their plans do not include buying credits in order to be in compliance. They have all said, the manufacturers, and I think the Alliance is going to testify later, their plan is to be in compliance starting in model year 2027 in the state of Maryland. That's what they're going to do. But I think clearly part of that is going to be they're going to have, absent something changing, they're going to ship less vehicles to my members, which is going to have a incredibly negative impact on our operations and employees. And again, there is a supply problem with EVs. I mean, even if everything else were workable with this program, the battery capacity worldwide makes it very unlikely that let's take the #1 selling nameplate in the state of Maryland is Toyota. At the end of last year, their EV penetration, not plug-in, just pure battery electric vehicles, was 0.39%. There is no way that they are going to have enough battery capacity to go from 0.39% to 43% in 30 months. It just doesn't exist. I think for almost every man, there may be, you know, some of the smaller manufacturer, a Volvo or something that goes to, they may be able to do it, but the volume manufacturers that a majority of the Marylanders drive, they're not going to be able to build that many vehicles, even if we could sell them.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask one follow-up? And Peter, just follow up with your point that manufacturers will not be buying credits anymore. I know they've bought them in the past to make clean car guidelines requirements. Why would they not be doing it moving forward? Is it because they've got their own models, the costs of the credits? Could you elaborate?
I think that's an excellent point, excellent question. I think one of the driving factors, and I can't speak for them directly, but when they were buying credits previously under Clean Cars 1, almost every manufacturer did not have an EV model. By the time we get to model year 2027, almost everybody. So if I was a manufacturer, I would have a hard time looking at my balance sheet. I just spent $5 billion developing an EV model, but I'm going to write a check to some fully electric manufacturer for $2 million for credits. I just don't think that's going to be part of the majority of the manufacturer's plan going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Allen. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. I guess my question will be for Mr. Kitsmiller, I guess. I'm trying to dig a little further into the supply and demand questions we have here. I was under the impression up until, there's still kind of a supply issue across the board, correct? With on dealerships and lots and
you mean in general?
In general, correct.
Certainly during COVID, we were operating at about 30% of normal. It's gotten much better,
right?
But
I know up until at least last summer when I purchased a vehicle,
yes,
it's still very much hand to mouth.
The last 6 months, we've gotten much closer. We're pretty much back to normal now. But you're exactly right. Prior to that, it was inventories in general were incredibly short.
Right. And I understand that. I worked in the auto industry on the manufacturing side, so I understand that to a degree. But again, digging into the supply issue, you're talking about manufacturers restricting what vehicles they would ship to dealers. I was under the impression that dealers place the orders directly from the manufacturer, correct?
Can I
Yes.
answer this
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we were to be allocated 100 cars from the manufacturer, 43% have to be EVs in model year 27, which is 26.
Right.
If I can't sell 43, which I can't obviously sell less 1% right now. So let's say I can sell 10. That has to be at 43% of what they're going to give me. So they're going to take the rest. If I can only take 30 some cars, they're going to give the rest to our neighboring states. That's the problem. So it's a double-edged sword here. They're not going to be able to produce that much, which is what you're hearing on this end, but we can't sell what we're getting anyway. So it's a really tough situation and it really is affecting us. And to buy credits from a competitor makes no sense for these companies to do that. I don't understand it, but.
Actually, the supply is, not all manufacturers have EVs, but those who do, the day supply is over 100 days, which is substantially higher than gasoline. And basically, I own a Tesla. I bought from the competition. I want to know what it's all about. So I'm not against Tesla. Tesla lowered the price 6 times last year because they ran out of orders and they're the leader and they've rolled their price because they're running out of orders. The early adopters have adopted and others aren't following. And it's understandable with higher interest rates, affordability is an issue. EVs cost a lot more.
Well, Tesla's
the range
business model is
anxiety.
very, very different too. Tesla's business model is very, very different from.
Well, I
the
think
dealer
demand
model.
is still the same for no matter what your business model is. And I this way, the prices dropped substantially and it's because of lack of orders and they filled the buckets and we're seeing as more and more manufacturers, there will be early adopters. Honda's coming out with one this month. And there'll be early adopters, but once they have adopted, what comes after that is the real question.
I mean, I know General Motors plans to ship 500,000 EVs this year.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Last question for this panel, Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to touch back on this question of supply and demand because I'm very confused because you say that you have cars that are EVs that are sitting and not selling, but I thought I heard you say that there's a supply problem as well. And I don't see how both can happen, you know, and I purchased a Chevy Bolt this past year, and I had to be on a waiting list for 3 months or so to get it and call multiple dealers because there's so much demand for them. As soon as they were coming into the dealership, they were selling. So I'm just really curious how we can reconcile those two things.
So I think I can answer that. So it absolutely, I don't know how long ago did you buy the car?
Well, I finally got mine in September, but it took about 3 months.
So
before
starting right around September, everything is pretty much, there are no more waiting lists for EVs. You don't have to have a waiting list for EVs. And the difference when we're talking about the difference between supply and demand, what we're saying on the supply side is in 30 months, 43% of everything each manufacturer ships into Maryland has to be an EV. That's the supply that I don't think they're going to be able to meet. Now, I don't think we can sell 43% either, but that's the supply we're talking about. As far as the supply now, we have plenty of EVs on the ground in Maryland today. They are selling it. And again, I want to be clear. Sales went up last year. They went up a little bit less. I don't think the increase is not going to continue like it's been. And I think this year there's a very good chance we will probably sell exactly the same number of EVs as we did in 23, and it may even go down. California, which is at 25% EV penetration, the last 3 months in California, EV sales have declined over 5% each month. The market has slowed dramatically since September.
I can explain that. It's a good question. How could there be shortages and supply? For those manufacturers who have supply, the inventory is building. Some manufacturers don't have EVs. I don't think Infiniti will even have an EV by the fall of 26. So if they don't have any EVs, they have to stop selling cars in the state of Maryland or suffer a $25,000 fine per car. I believe that's what it is. So that's how that works. For those manufacturers who have EVs, the day supply is growing. For those who don't, a lot of manufacturers won't even have enough to meet the number, even if there was consumer demand.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the sponsor on this panel. We have another panel of favorable witnesses: Daniel Fitzgerald, Banka Salisbury, Jason Manuel, same organization, Devin Smith, same organization, Bill Crest, Alliance for Automotive Innovation, and Joshua Fisher, same organization. So you please go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, committee members. Thank you for allowing us to testify today on Senate Bill 1247. My name is Devin Smith, and I'm an EV specialist and sales representative for Ford. And my job is to educate our customers on the benefits of EVs and how to operate them. I think it's important to share with you all the pros and cons of today's BEVs. The Ford F-150 Lightning is a pickup truck that Ford currently sells and is very popular, along with the Mustang Mach-E crossover. The Ford F-150 Lightning is very incredible. It's got a great towing capacity and provides a driving experience like no other. But the problem is today's batteries are massive, dangerous, and require large charge times. Although people love the truck, they don't trust the technology. The same goes for the Mach-E. It's an impressive vehicle, but people just don't trust it. There are currently 3 levels of charging for BEVs. First, we have vehicles that plug directly into a 120-volt outlet in your home. At 3 miles per charge hour, it would take roughly 104 hours to charge a vehicle to 100%. At level 2, it requires a 240-volt outlet that is needed to be installed by a certified electrician, costing up to $2,000 upon installation. At 22 miles per charge hour, it would take approximately 10 hours to charge your vehicle to 100%. Level 3 is DC fast charging. This takes approximately 45 minutes to charge from 15 to 80%, and frequent fast charging can pose a significant risk to the battery's operation. Based on government estimates, 2.8 million public chargers would be needed by 2032, but only 170,000 exist today. This is only 6% of what is needed. That means that 800 new chargers would have to be built every single day for the next 9 years. In 2021, the government put up $7.5 billion for charging stations, yet only 3 have been built for this program. These batteries weigh up to 1,800 pounds, have up to 650 volts of electricity. These vehicles weigh 2,500 pounds more on average. They're hard on tires and they're hard on our roads. They're difficult to work on and they cost more to service them. As I said, these vehicles are impressive. However, the technology and infrastructure just are not there yet. Thank you for my time, and we hope you report favorably on this bill.
All right. Good afternoon, committee members. Thank you for providing me the time and opportunity to testify in support of HB 1247. My name is Dan Fitzgerald, and I serve as the general manager at a Volkswagen dealership in Salisbury, Maryland. In August of 2020, we proudly inaugurated the first electrified VW showroom in the entire country, a venture that required an investment exceeding $1 million. I took the initiative to host training videos aimed at facilitating electric vehicle adoption across the entire VW dealer network across the country. Our commitment is evident as every member of our sales team and both master technicians have diligently completed all requisite training sessions for selling EVs. In 2021, VW introduced its first electric vehicle, the ID.4. Despite our earnest efforts, the sales of ID.4s over the initial 3 years amounted to 34 units, constituting a mere 0.03% of our total sales. While we anticipated a more substantial return on our significant investment, we acknowledge the gradual nature of this transition. Regrettably, of the 34 ID.4s sold, 10 customers later traded their electric vehicles at VW or other Banka locations for traditional internal combustion engines. The predominant challenge prompting this reversal was the inadequate infrastructure for charging. This chart illustrates the scarcity of available fast charging public stations on the Eastern Shore. It also includes Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia. Consider the predicament of individuals residing in Denton, Fredericksburg, Snow Hill, Princess Anne. Imagine they are 10 miles from home with 5 miles of charge left. The lack of charging areas and such options often left them on the side of the road, needing to be towed to a charging station or to the dealership. Presently, the infrastructure for EV chargers is ill-equipped to accommodate even 1% of vehicles sold, let alone the projected 43% in 2 years. I earnestly implore you to recommend a favorable report for HB 1247. Our dealership is eager to promote more EVs on the Eastern Shore, but we need time for the infrastructure to align with proposed demand.
Good afternoon, committee members, and thank you for providing me with the opportunity to speak in support of House Bill 1247. My name is Jason Manuel. I bring a unique perspective as a licensed Maryland State Vehicle Safety Inspector and a certified high voltage battery technician at a Volkswagen dealership in Salisbury, Maryland. Embarking on the journey of electric vehicle repairs involves a significant investment of both time and resources, both for technicians and dealers alike. Becoming a certified high voltage technician with Volkswagen demands an attendance at multiple four-day classes in authorized training centers, often located out of state. Subsequent to completing these classes, technicians are required to engage in various self-study programs tailored to specific repairs and models. Allow me to illustrate the gravity of EV repairs. A fully equipped EV suit, a mandatory attire for technicians during such repairs, is not only cumbersome and restrictive, but also intensifies the working condition due to its weight and limited ventilation. With 3 pairs of insulated gloves each, maneuvering hand tools becomes an intricate challenge. It's crucial to note that this suit primarily guards against arc flash, not against electrocution. Technicians are exposed to a 400-volt battery system emitting close to 300 amps. Quick research reveals that a steady 0.4 of an amp is sufficient to impact the heart's performance. These intricate repairs monopolize 2 work bays for at least a full day, requiring the dedicated attention of 2 technicians. Importantly, these bays cannot be vacated for any reason, as the battery case serves as the main structural support for the vehicle chassis. Lowering the vehicle on its own weight risks damaging the body of the vehicle. Consequently, this disrupts workshop production, increases customer wait times, and incurs additional costs for the dealership, all of which are eventually transferred to the consumer. The culmination of expensive batteries, labor-intensive processes, and potential hazards underscores the pressing need for your support for this bill. I urge you to provide a favorable report and allow necessary time to evolve and improve for safety of technicians, emergency workers, and vehicle owners alike.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Josh Fisher. I'm with the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. We represent the auto manufacturers with franchise dealers in the state of Maryland. And just to be clear, I'm here as an informational witness today. I do want to take the opportunity to provide the auto industry's perspective on the feasibility of the Clean Cars Rule in Maryland and to highlight the types of supportive policies that are really critical to help Maryland residents and businesses navigate what's going to be a challenging and changing new vehicle market in the state. So Maryland really needs to determine the feasibility of meeting the EV sales requirements and whether it can afford to make the necessary investments to help spur the EV market. Now, let me be clear. We don't doubt or dispute the feasibility of the technology. There are over 111 EV models in the new vehicle market right now, probably about 150 in a few more years. We're fully committed to an electrified future. The question is how fast? Now, the ability to meet of the industry to meet these rapidly increasing EV sales requirements depends on individual states and local jurisdictions adopting supportive policies that will enable their residents to purchase and fuel an electric vehicle. These are largely beyond the control of automakers, yet they're prerequisites to the industry being able to achieve the sales volumes required under ACC 2. We would encourage you to, as part of your assessment, to consider the following questions. Can Maryland really afford to commit the necessary money to its EV purchase rebate and infrastructure incentives? Can Maryland enact policies like Delegate Jacobs' House Bill 889, which we support, which would extend charging to multi-unit dwellings? And is Maryland doing enough to increase consumer education and making its residents aware about electric vehicles? There are more issues to consider in our written testimony, and I just want to say we are committed to working with the state on these supportive policies. We've been here to support several bills this year and we'll continue to do so, but we've got to do this together. It can't be done on the backs of manufacturers or consumers or dealers. It does take a significant commitment from the state. So I'm happy to answer any questions and appreciate the time to speak today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Madam Vice Chair, Delegate Fisher from ECM. Good to see you. Bill Crest here on behalf of the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. I wanted to take my 2 minutes to discuss what California has done to support the marketplace. So California has committed over $10 billion for infrastructure. In February, they committed another $1.9 billion for infrastructure. They have 25% EV sales. It's very unclear whether or not they're actually going to make the goals of next year of 36%, I believe, is the following year. 43%, but they have committed to putting in the money for the infrastructure. Maryland, of course, is following the policies of California, but they have not committed the resources, and that's just where we are today. If Maryland were to commit to the similar resources on a per capita basis, it would be $1.5 billion. Now, I know the MDE secretary has been before you and suggested that $300 million in incentives per year would move the market. I knew these are difficult choices. I know where the state is. I know that the governor has a $1 billion price tag on his climate change plan. But at the end of the day, Maryland is not going to go from 5% for the OEMs to 43% in 30 months. It's simply not going to happen. We would look forward to working with the committee and the administration to figure out a way to move this forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I do apologize to the last two witnesses. You were signed up as informational, so I misspoke by grouping you all together. Any questions for this panel? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1247. We'll stick with Delegate Adams for the Dorchester County delegation, Sanitary Commission transfer of powers to County Council. And if you have a panelist, Delegate Adams, bring them on up.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I do have a Chip McLeod's going to testify with me. Okay. Oh, is Sandy here? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Delegate Chris Adams, here to present House Bill 1161 titled Dorchester County Sanitary Commission Transfer of Powers to County Council. The bill authorizes the Dorchester County Council to enact a local law to abolish the Dorchester County Sanitary Commission and establish a Department of Public Facilities and Services as specified. The bill transfers various powers from the Sanitary Commission to the County Council and makes conforming changes. Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair, this is a local bill that has the support of the County Council, and considering it's a local bill, I will move my testimony to my panel. Thank you very much for your favorable consideration.
Good afternoon, Chairman Corman and members of the committee. My name is Sandra Tripp Jones. I'm a consultant to Dorchester County assigned to assist the Dorchester Sanitary District with overall management and to coordinate preparation for the proposed dissolution of the sanitary district and county assumption of the assets, obligations, and responsibilities of the district. As said, the purpose of proposed HB 1161 is to enact a law to abolish Dorchester County Sanitary Commission and District and provide authority to establish a Dorchester County Department of Public Facilities and Services, specifically a department providing water and sewer services. The sanitary district is a relatively small rural district with about 2,100 customers. 1,650 are sewer connections, 225 water connections, and 225 shared facilities customers. Much of the infrastructure is old and deteriorating. Of the 43 shared facilities, also known as bermed infiltration ponds, 60% are failing or at risk of failing and at risk of causing environmental damage to land and open water. The district has operated for years with only 3 full-time staff members and a 6-member lay board appointed by the county council. With this limited staff and expertise, the district commission has not planned for infrastructure, preventive maintenance, and replacement. They have not monitored the bermed infiltration ponds for proper maintenance by property owners. They have not had the management expertise or guidance to plan for long-term expansion to support the county's water and sewer plan, including potential development in other parts of the county. Without that, growth in the county is essentially stopped. The county and the district recognize that the county has a more robust management and administrative organization that can do these things. The county will establish a department as an enterprise fund, meaning that all the district's assets transferred to this enterprise fund will be prohibited for expenditures for general government.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. McLeod, do you have something to add?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. My name is Chip McLeod. I'm the county attorney for Dorchester County, and I'm here on behalf of the county council to ask for your favorable support of House Bill 1161. In the evolution of Dorchester County, which is a charter county, this is a good time with the current county council for this transition to happen. As Ms. Tripp Jones just testified, Dorchester County has a sanitary district whose responsibility is to provide public water and sewer in the whole county. Dorchester County is the largest county in the state of Maryland by land mass, the largest. Half of it, about 983 square miles, Dorchester County, about 442 square miles are underwater. So a lot of Dorchester County is already undevelopable. 2,100 customers, if you heard that, that's one subdivision in a lot of your jurisdictions. So it's a small sanitary district with few customers, but it's very important for the future of Dorchester County and the economic development of Dorchester County to allow this transition where the county government can take control of public water and sewer in the county, and then hopefully make some very important decisions about how Dorchester County can grow safely and environmentally sound. So we asked your favorable support. I'm happy to answer any questions about this. And let me say this as the county attorney, there's even a question about this legislation as far as being needed in terms of the county council adopting local legislation to create a water and sewer department. It is in fact a charter county, just like the other big charter counties. The state law, though, is a little murky. And I've been representing local governments in the state of Maryland for quite a few years. And a lot of lawyers have looked at this and says, of course, Dorchester can do it. Maybe they can. So we're going to move forward, the county. This does clean up some provisions in state law that shouldn't be there once we do this abolishment of the sanitary district. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, really quick, to attribute it correctly, Delegate Tom Hutchinson is the chair of the Dorchester County Delegation. I'm a member here presenting on his behalf.
Great. And Delegate Adams, just so you know, one of your witnesses was not signed up. Obviously, we took them anyway as a courtesy, but make sure your witnesses sign up. Any questions for this panel? Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, have you all seen the testimony from MDE?
Yes, and I've been notified by Delegate Hutchinson that he has spoken to representatives of MDE who don't have any amendments they plan to propose, and I thought they were going to support either way. But I don't want to speak for MDE, but that was per Delegate Hutchinson.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I don't see anyone else for this. Any questions for this panel? MDE is actually signed up to testify as Les Knapp here. Okay, great. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1161. We'll now turn to our Carroll County delegation bills. We've got Chair Rosas here, HB 720, Carroll County Deputy Clerk or Deputy Sheriff Oath of Office.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity today. For the record, Delegate April Rose, Chair of the Carroll County Delegation. May I bring up my one-person panel? House Bill 720 was brought to us by our Clerk of the Court in the interim, and this bill basically will apply to the deputy clerks or deputy sheriffs which oath they take when they take office. And so the current oath is the I-9 oath, and we would rather have it be addressed by the 2-104B oath for the following reasons. The current oath prescribed by 2-104 is limited and does not align with the responsibilities or the full scope of services which deputy sheriffs and deputy clerks provide to the citizens of Carroll County. 2-104 does not require the sheriffs and deputy clerks to bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland, support its constitution and laws, to fulfill their duties or execute their office according to the Maryland Constitution and Maryland law without partiality or prejudice, to swear or affirm that they will support the Constitution of the United States, or to perform all duties diligently and faithfully. There's already an exception in law provided to Montgomery County and Washington County, and we would like to align with those counties moving forward. This modification is simple, will only affect Carroll County with this bill. I don't believe there's any opposition to this change, and it would fall solely on the Clerk of the Court for Carroll County. So for those reasons, I would respectfully ask for a favorable report. I don't believe there's anyone that's in opposition to this, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. You're here to testify, sir?
For the next two bills.
I forgot he's not on this one. He's on the next two.
Terrific. Any questions for Delegate Rose? Delegate Healy?
Yeah, I just want to understand, what is the difference between the two? I mean, what is the exact difference of the
So
wording?
the I-9,
I mean, you read the one, so I know.
Yeah, that's the one that-
basically the one that
Yes.
we take when we swear.
that is the one that we want. I don't know that I printed. The I-9. I'm sorry, I don't have that language.
Could
with
you
me.
send that to me so we have it for the subcommittee?
Absolutely. I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
100%. Yep. Thank you.
Oh, Delegate Terrassa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think you may have just answered this question, but what you read is what you want, not what
Yes.
you're getting. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. 100%.
Does anybody have further questions about this Carroll County only local bill? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing on HB 720. We'll now turn to HB 839, Carroll County Delegation Contracts and Purchasing.
Okay. Thank you again. For the record, Delegate April Rose, Chair of the Carroll County Delegation, here today to support House Bill 839, Contracts and Purchasing. This bill was brought to our delegation by our Carroll County Commissioners. It will raise the contract value threshold from $25,000 to $50,000, above which the Commissioners will need to give advance public notice and use competitive bidding to purchase supplies and equipment or contract for a public work or improvement. We voted unanimously to support this legislation. We have our Carroll County liaison to the Commissioners here today, Mike Fowler, to answer any other technical questions. Thank you for your time.
You're just here for questions? We have a lot. Any questions? No? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing HB 839, HB 1080, Carroll County, Office of Permits and Inspections, denial of permit or license for unpaid personal property taxes.
Thank you. Again, Delegate April Rose here to support House Bill 1080. This bill was again brought to us by our Carroll County Commissioners. It prohibits the Carroll County Office of Permits and Inspections from issuing or renewing a license or permit until the applicant provides satisfactory evidence that there are no unpaid assessed personal property taxes. We voted unanimously to support this legislation. I thank you for your time. And again, Mike Fowler is here to answer any questions about this specific issue in Carroll.
Actually, I have something to
sorry.
offer, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So actually, I think that is actually the original draft of the bill was drafted in error. That original version said that an applicant had to provide documentation that their personal property taxes have been paid. That's an error. It's been amended to its original intent, which is if a business comes in for a commercial permit or a license, and we check with the comptroller and they are delinquent in the payment of their personal property taxes, the county can withhold the permit. If they are able to provide documentation that the assessment is in appeal, then we would issue the permit. And in the situation where we were withholding a permit and they come to us with documentation that the personal property taxes have been paid, we would issue the permit.
And I apologize. I do have the amendment back and I did not alter my testimony, but I can certainly send that as well.
Thank you very much, Delegate. A question from Delegate Healy.
Yeah, I just want to, are the amendments in the record? Have we got them?
I believe they are in the floor system now because I do have it back. But I can certainly make sure I email that to the committee so that you have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think an amendment like that, Delegate Rose, does not go into the floor system unless you submit it with your testimony. So
I'll
make sure you get it over to the staff. I know
I'll
you're used
make
to
sure.
those floor amendments, but it's a little different before it gets to the floor.
No problem.
Okay, that concludes the bill hearing on HB 1080. We'll now turn to HB 989, Prince George's and Montgomery County delegation. I believe we have Delegate Lopez to present subdivision plats conditions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you to the members of ENT for the opportunity to come before you and ask for your favorable support of HB 979. For the record, my name is Delegate Leslie Lopez. Just as the bill I presented yesterday, the one I'm presenting today is a recommendation to come out of the Montgomery County Development Review Process Work Group and streamlines the approval process for subdivision plats. This work group took into consideration a large amount of public comments as well as priorities from many county and state government agencies. Once a subdivision plat is submitted to the planning department, it is circulated to the Montgomery County Department of Permitting Services and others to review. With each review cycle, the planning department consolidates comments and returns them to the applicant, returns to the application for corrections. The review cycle will be repeated until all agencies deem the plat acceptable and sign it, and then it must go to the planning board in public session. There are often several weeks spent obtaining signatures before the plan can go to the planning board. The purpose of this bill is to allow an applicant to receive a tentative planning board approval of a plat while the plat is still circulating for signatures and other administrative tasks. Once the plat is conditionally approved by the planning board, it does not need to go back for additional review or approval if the conditions are met. This change will help subdivision plats move more quickly through the approval process and with the expected savings of at least 3 weeks in the development review process. Vastly reducing the review timeline will expedite important growth, included much needed affordable housing in Montgomery County. And with that, I ask for a favorable report.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Cronenberg. I'm the Deputy Director with Montgomery Planning, which is part of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. I was one of the 2 participants in the planning department as part of the development review process work group that dealt with this particular development issue. And it was as part of that work group facilitated by Delegate Lopez. I'm here testifying in support of HB 0989. The work group was focused on streamlining the development review process, and this does exactly that. The bill allows for conditional planning board approval, allowing an applicant to receive planning board approval of a plat in a public session while the plat is still circulating for signature. And as noted, this will save a considerable amount of time during that process. So thank you for allowing me to testify in support of HB 0989.
Good afternoon. My name is Christina Sorrento, and I am the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division for Montgomery Planning, which is part of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. I was the other participant of the development review process for planning, but in the work group that was facilitated by Delegate Lopez. And I'm testifying in support of HB 0989. The development review process work group was tasked with making the development review process more efficient. And this bill would do just that by allowing the planning board to conditionally approve record plats. This would enable plats to be approved while they are awaiting signatures or other administrative items. The record plats would be approved as long as it met the conditions of approval. The work group saw this as an easy way to save time in the subdivision process. And we estimate that this minor process change would save at least 2 weeks in the approval process. And for these reasons, we support HB 0989 as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this panel? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing on HB 989. We'll go to HB 1003, Clerk of the Circuit Court, Montgomery County, plat recordation, Delegate Lopez.
Hello again. For the record, I'm Delegate Leslie Lopez presenting HB 1003. HB 1003 is the final state law recommendation to come out of the Montgomery County Development Review Process Work Group and authorizes a plat to be drawn, recorded, maintained in electronic form in a manner approved by the state archivist. Plats must be recorded before any new lots can be sold or building permits issued. Currently, state law requires plats to be on Mylar preserved in a book by the state archivist. This requires circulation of the physical Mylar drawing to various parties and government agencies for signature, which can take several weeks or more. Allowing for electronic versions of the plat as well as electronic approval signatures will modernize and very obviously increase efficiency. Thank you again for your consideration, and I ask for a favorable report.
Good afternoon again. My name is Robert Cronenberg. I'm the Deputy Director with Montgomery Planning, part of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. Again, I was one of 2 participants in the Development Review Process Work Group facilitated by Delegate Lopez, and am testifying in support of HB 1003. The work group was focused on streamlining the development review process in Montgomery County, and the bill allows for the use of digital signatures on record plats for archiving digital plats. Use of digital signatures increases efficiency, productivity, and definitely will save some time during the process. Thank you again, and for allowing me to testify in support of HB 1003.
Good afternoon again. My name is Christina Sorrento, and I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division with Montgomery Planning, part of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. And as I previously stated, I was part of the work group that was facilitated by Delegate Lopez, and I'm testifying in support of HB 1003. This bill would make the development review process more efficient by allowing the use of digital signatures on record plats, which would speed up the subdivision process in Montgomery County. Currently, a record plat must be signed by multiple parties by hand. This requires the plat to be hand delivered or mailed to each signatory. Each plat has 10 or more signatories, which requires a lot of hand delivery, mailing, and coordination. And many times the signatory for businesses are located outside of state, which adds even more time onto a tedious signature process. This bill would enable the use of digital signatures that would circumvent all of that and eliminate at least a couple of weeks from the approval time. For these reasons, we support Bill HB 1003. Thank you.
Thank you all. Are there any questions for this panel? Okay, Delegate Lopez, thank you. That concludes the bill hearing HB 1003. We'll jump down to HB 668, Delegate Pruski, Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Salary.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, Committee, my name is Delegate Pruski. I'm here to present on HB 668, Anne Arundel County sheriff's salary. In doing my research, the salary of the sheriff position in Anne Arundel County was last adjusted in 2015. In 2020, though, there was an attempt by the legislature to actually increase the salary for the sheriff, and the House of Delegates passed and moved forward legislation. Unfortunately, there was no action taken in the Senate. HB 668 is the same bill that was brought forward in 2020, and I'm asking for your favorable support. HB 668 increases the Anne Arundel County Sheriff's salary to better align with other jurisdictions, match the position with equivalency in the state and Anne Arundel County. It will also benchmark future increases upon the captain's salary at step 20 in the Anne Arundel County Police Department. When reviewing the role, responsibility of the sheriff of Anne Arundel County, there are similarities of the number of people overseen with the captain position. Again, making the sheriff's salary of Anne Arundel County to a captain in the police department, since that benchmark with the scale. The preemption clause, though, in the Maryland statute, do want to point out, would not allow the current sheriff who's sitting next to me to receive that salary, obviously, until the next election. But I'd ask for a favorable report. And again, thank you for your time today.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And thank you, committee members, for taking this bill up. I'm not going to bog you down with the traditional role of a sheriff, but what I will talk to you about is some of the non-traditional things that I do. As a servant of the state, I handle many different instances. And one thing I want to talk about is coming from Prince George's County. There was a young lady who was stopped on the side of the road. She had a flat tire. And I changed that tire for her. I didn't change it because it was asked of me. I did it because as a servant of the state, it's my responsibility to do that. During the last snowstorm, I got a call from a grandson of a person here. He lives in Cecil County. He wanted me to check on his family, his grandmother and uncle. I did that. I did that because I am an employee of the state, although I work for the Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Office. I also received a call from the Anne Arundel County Police. They had a woman who was in distress in her vehicle. She had barricaded herself in the vehicle, and she wanted to meet with the sheriff. So I went out there and I met with her and I talked to her. I was able to get her out of the vehicle. I did it because it's my responsibility. Those are just some of the non-traditional roles that I do. Your approval here of this bill today will ensure that anybody else that applies for this job, just as I did, that the citizens of Anne Arundel County is going to get the best and the brightest person to choose from. Your approval will mean a lot to the citizens, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your service, sir. Are there any questions for Delegate Pruski or is the sheriff? Okay, thank you. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 668. We'll go back to House Bill 1024, which will be presented by Delegate Stewart, WSSC Pipe Emergency Replacement Loan Program Expansion. And feel free to bring up a leadership Montgomery classmate of mine as your panelists.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Trish, members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Vaughn Stewart. This is House Bill 1024. This is not my bill. I'm presenting this on behalf of the chair of the Montgomery County Delegation, who introduced the bill on behalf of WSSC Water. This bill is about pipes. It's a good bill. Thank you.
Love that. Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and committee members. My name is Kelly Kaplan, and I am a Leadership Montgomery colleague of Mark's from 2013. I'm the Division Manager for Customer Engagement and Advocacy at WSSC Water. I am here today to testify on behalf of House Bill 1024, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission's expansion of the Connection Pipe Emergency Replacement Loan Program. Apologies here, my mouth is not working. This proposed legislation will allow for the expansion of a program authorized by the Public Utilities Article of Annotated Code of Maryland, Section 23-205, to include some additional things: sewer service line repair or replacement, and diagnostics, including camera investigation and snaking. Currently, the program only covers water service line replacement. Additionally, the legislation increases the maximum loan amount for customers from $5,000 to $10,000 and extends the program sunset date from 2029 to 2034. The program was established by WSSC on July 1st, 2019, and is set to expire on June 30th, 2029. There is currently $100,000 allocated in the WSSC water annual budget. And if passed, we're looking to increase that to $200,000. Currently, the program provides loans to eligible residential customers that need to finance the replacement of a leaking water service line that connects the commission's service connection, typically in the right of way, think sidewalk, think street, to the residents. Right now, the program is administered by the WSSC Federal Credit Union. And despite a robust promotional plan, we've only had 6 customers leverage the program. There were 5 in Prince George's and 1 in Montgomery County. The expansion of this program would really expand what customers need. Imagine your sewer line is leaking in your yard and you can't afford it. So we propose, this aligns with our financial stewardship priority and expands our portfolio of customer assistance programs. We respectfully request a favorable report for HB 1024, and I'm available to take any questions.
Great. Thank you both. Any questions? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1024. We will now turn to our Charles County slate of bills. Delegate Davis, Charles County Governing Bodies of Common Ownership Communities Member Training.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Deborah Davis. I'm from Charles County. I'd like to first and foremost thank my colleague, Delegate Marvin Holmes, for traveling all the way to Charles County to meet with a group of people to talk about what they can do to improve their homeowners associations. So in short, this bill would require training for common ownership boards and committees. As amended, it mirrors the statewide bill of Marvin Holmes, and we respectfully request a favorable report.
And I will call up your virtual witness. I am Moore, Charles County HOA and Civic Association Alliance. Please go ahead.
Good day, everyone. My name is Ayana Moore, and I'm testifying on behalf of the newly established Charles County HOA and Civic Association Alliance. Collectively, we represent numerous HOA and Civic Association boards who volunteer to serve thousands of Charles County citizens, and we vehemently support this bill. As a longtime HOA board member, I have personally witnessed how a lack of education can have a negative effect on the fulfillment of duties. Although we are volunteers, we are tasked with budgetary decisions, stormwater infrastructure oversight, fiduciary responsibility, and a myriad of other duties, all of which require comprehension to effectively execute. This bill will set a universal standard of knowledge, assure only educated volunteers are serving, and provide board members with the tools to make pragmatic decisions alongside their property management company if they have one. In addition, we are proposing that volunteers have 90 days to complete training at their leisure so as to not interfere with their personal lives. Moreover, this proposal had the benefit of a local public hearing where it received no public opposition. And as a local bill, it is critical to responding to the specific needs of Charles County. In closing, the Charles County HOA and Civic Association Alliance respectfully ask that the committee give this bill a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the delegate or her panelist? Okay, that concludes the bill on HB 687. Delegate Davis, you want to do HB 1321, Land Use Southern Maryland Code Counties, Property Dedication and Fee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Vice Chair. Again, my name is Delegate Deborah Davis. I'm from Charles County, District 28. I'm here to present HB 1321. It's entitled Land Use Southern Maryland Code Counties, Subdivision Regulations, Property Dedication and Fee. In short, I'd like to say this is a local bill. It has had a public hearing in the county. It is supported by the entire General Assembly delegation and the Charles County Commissioners. Now, I used to be a county commissioner, and I don't know what this means, but if you don't mind, I will read what it says. This bill, when passed, would amend the land use article, section 1403, to allow Charles County to provide the county's subdivision regulations for the dedication of real property and recreation, or in lieu of dedication, the payment of a fee to be used by the county for the purchase, development, and improvement of real property for recreational activities. And I have one witness. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's bring up Sam Drury, Charles County Recreation, Parks and Tourism. Please go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name is Sam Drury, and I'm the Deputy Director of Charles County Recreation, Parks and Tourism. We're appreciative to our Charles County delegation for submitting this bill on our behalf, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on the power of this bill. House Bill 1321 would provide the county the opportunity to amend the subdivision regulations to require either a dedication of real property or a payment in lieu of real property, which the county can use for parks and recreation purposes. This is enabling legislation which would still require local law. Details of the fee in lieu will be discussed publicly and have the benefit of a public hearing at the local level before enactment. Through that process, this legislation would provide a mechanism for our department to expand our parklands and increase amenities with a direct correlation to the increase in rising population. I've been with our department for over 20 years and have seen firsthand the growing pains of Charles County being one of the fastest growing counties in Maryland. New families move into the area, bringing the quality of life expectations directly tied to parks and recreation. Without dedicated county funding, we have been unable to keep up with this growth. Our department has historically relied heavily on the state's program Open Space Program, and while we're appreciative, these funds are limited. Our most recent Land Preservation Parks and Recreation Plan directly identified the need for additional amenities and equitable access. Enabling this fee in lieu legislation allows us to respond to this direct feedback from our community by increasing the amenities and geographic placement to allow the greatest levels of access for our residents. I understand that some developers may be opposed to an additional fee in lieu within the subdivision regulations, but we look forward to public discussion on the specifics through our local process. But I can assure you that many conversations with the new homeowners moving into the area have also expressed the need and expectation for expanded parks and recreation services. By establishing this legislation, this will help our department move towards the goal of better serving our residents through parks and recreation. I encourage a favorable report on House Bill 1321. Thank you for your time and opportunity to speak in support of this bill on behalf of Charles County and the Department of Recreation, Parks and Tourism.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. I have a question from Delegate Terrassa.
Mr. Chairman, if you could just add that, if your witness could just answer, is there the ability for the county right now through the subdivision regs to require the dedication of real property?
Yes.
And this is just about the fee in lieu?
That's correct.
So this is just allowing for you, but how does that add to your parks and recreational facilities if you're not getting the land?
One of the things that we have seen over the years is a lot of the land that developers utilize is properties that may be utilized for local playgrounds, areas within their communities. It's not overarching within the overall county. So it's very limited, so that it's the responsibility then falls under the homeowners associations, and they're not often upkept. And the participants are looking for more, especially when these families are moving in and may have children that are start participating in our sports programs and activities, and they start utilizing our fields. So we don't have that lieu of where we're able to put more money into our larger county assets.
Okay, and would this require the fee in lieu to be used in the area where that subdivision is?
Not necessarily.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sam.
Any further questions? Okay, that concludes Bill on HB 1321. We're going to jump real quick to HB 681, Baltimore City Delegation, access to digital photographic images and signatures. Chair Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Vice Chair and distinguished members of the House ENT Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Stephanie Smith, and I'm here to present House Bill 681, introduced by request of the administration of the Mayor of Baltimore City. It is a counter, or a complement rather, to a bill that has already passed out of ENT related to our ongoing efforts to address illegal dumping and excessive litter. And so this bill specifically would enable our enforcement agencies at the Housing and Community Development, the city's, Housing Community Development Agency to have access to MVA records, specifically graphic records that will enable them to more successfully investigate and hopefully bring to account those bad actors that are engaged in illegal dumping across the city. I do want to note that there is an amendment and an amendment that I'm offering orally because it's arising out of efforts for the cross file in the Senate. So this is to ensure that they are in the same posture that would end up striking language in the current bill that says, and any other agency designated by the mayor of Baltimore City to be focused on the Special Investigations Unit of the Housing and Community Development Agency or any successor entity specifically to that investigatory agency. So we just didn't want to make this where everyone in Baltimore City government would have access to this, but to make sure that the most appropriate, subset of city government would be able to utilize this asset. So I hope for a favorable report for House Bill 681 and yield for questions and more insight from my colleagues in city government.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Nina Themelis. I serve as Director of Government Relations for Mayor Scott, here to testify in support of House Bill 681 on behalf of the Baltimore City Administration. The sponsor laid out all of the provisions of the legislation, so I'll just add on that the city has undertaken a number of significant efforts to deter and reduce illegal dumping. Within the past 6 months alone, we have added over 30 cameras to our illegal dumping camera program. And so this bill would just allow us to be able to access those MVA photos to connect individuals who we capture on camera in the course of investigations by the Special Investigations Unit. Just to note that the Special Investigations Unit already does have a level of access to MVA records, including registration information and driver identification information. They use the secure login system regularly. This would just allow them that additional level of access to the photos directly, again, to connect them to the photos captured on the cameras to those licenses. And so for those reasons, we request a favorable report for House Bill 681.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Stephanie Murdoch, Director of Legislative Services for Baltimore City DHCD, here on behalf of the administration in support of House Bill 681, which will provide better access to MVA photos for our Special Investigations Unit. A little about our Special Investigations Unit. They are commissioned special enforcement officers by the Baltimore Police Department, and they are trained and experienced with proper data protection and retrieval. However, they're presently unable to review MVA driver's license photos without first going through the Baltimore City Police Department per a specific provision of the Maryland Transportation article. This legislation would clarify that for the purposes of this section, DHCD SIU, with the amendment previously discussed, is deemed a criminal justice agency and can receive photo images by adding criminal justice agency to include Baltimore City under the criminal law code. Just as an example, we had a single individual dump on 9 separate occasions over a 4-month period, and it wasn't until the 8th dump that we obtained the MVA photo and were able to identify him and file criminal dumping charges. He dumped the 9th time on the same day that charges were filed for the first 8 cases. In our experience, once the dumper has been identified and contacted, they curb that behavior. Being able to quickly identify dumpers and get in contact them will significantly decrease illegal dumping in Baltimore, and we respectfully request a favorable report on this bill and stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Are you just here for questions, Seth?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Seth Greer, Assistant Commissioner for Permits and Litigation. I'm not quite sure I could say anything better than the 3 young women that just went, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Delegate Lehman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it sounds like you do have access to these photos now. What are you seeking in the bill, to get faster access or different like a higher quality of image? What exactly are you trying to do?
Right. So,
Do you want to answer?
so currently, the level of access that we have is our special investigations unit has to request through the Baltimore Police Department those photos. So they do not have direct access to them. So this would just allow those photos to be directly accessed by the special investigations unit.
And does any other jurisdiction in the state have that automatic access that you're seeking?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, I think it's a little bit concerning for, I guess, privacy and other reasons, but do you not have concerns about mistaken identity?
No.
Well, I mean, I would say these are investigations where we're obtaining these photos and going out to speak to the individuals as a part of our investigation.
I'm sorry, going out to speak to whom?
The suspects from the photos that we're using in our illegal dumping cases. And this is not using any kind of face recognition or anything. It's just our investigators having the ability to match those photos with the individuals that we're capturing on our surveillance cameras.
Madam Chair, one more question. So how do other jurisdictions deal with this? If no one else has come to the General Assembly to ask for this kind of access, every other jurisdiction in the state has dumping problems. Certainly,
Respectfully,
my
we
home
probably have
county
more
of Prince
acute-
George's does. I'm just curious because this seems kind of unusual.
But respectfully, I believe we probably have a more acute dumping problem. And in many instances, the dumpers aren't even our residents. There are people who coming into our city knowing we're undergunned and don't have the same resources to dump. I would say, honestly, I can only speak for me as a 45th district representative. I get more inquiries around grime than I do crime. It is that much of an issue in our jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Seeing none, that ends the hearing for HB 681. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Calling up now Delegate Munoz, HB 343, Environment Cox Creek Citizens Oversight Committee membership. Do you have a panel, delegate?
I believe I found one. Yes.
You can bring them up,
Just
please.
one.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. For the record, my name is Delegate Rachel Munoz, and I come before you today to humbly present House Bill 343, Cox Creek Citizens Oversight Committee membership. I'll start by saying the cross-file of this bill has already passed out of EEE and the Senate unanimously. It simply proposes vital changes to the Cox Creek Citizens Oversight Committee's membership. Our team has been working with the Maryland Port Authority and our local community leaders for the past year to craft legislation that everyone is happy with. The adjustment to the Oversight Committee's composition outlined in this bill and the accompanied amendments that you should have in your floor system that allow it to match the Senate version exactly signify a concerted effort to ensure comprehensive representation from various stakeholders deeply invested in safeguarding the Cox Creek region. By including voices from esteemed local organizations, we aim to harness diverse perspectives and expertise essential for effective environmental stewardship. The Anne Arundel delegation has provided a letter of support for House Bill 343, recognizing its potential to foster environmental stewardship, promote community engagement, and safeguard the natural beauty of the Cox Creek region for generations to come. And I will just point out that this bill does in fact have both Republican and Democratic support. For the foregoing reasons, I respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 434.
Good morning. My name is Bob Monroe. I am the Deputy Executive Director from the Maryland Port Administration. In light of the delegates' very succinct and uplifting comments, I really don't have a lot to add to her testimony. We did submit some written testimony, so I'll respectfully end on that, knowing that it's been a long day for the committee.
Thank you. Congratulations on your excellent pronunciation. Delegate Healy with her first question.
Thank you very much. I'm just curious why you need a bill to do this. Why can't you just do it at the local level?
Thank you for the question. So we've actually been working in conjunction with the Maryland Port Authority and local leaders for the past year. And this has been a really involved process. And everyone kind of came to the table and negotiated and worked through it. And this bill is what was settled on.
I think I could add to the delegates. The Citizens Oversight Committee is set up in statute. And the committee membership is actually named in the statute. And one of the things that these amendments do is amend that statute to try and enhance the committee membership by making it broader and more up to date. There were some obsolete groups that were identified as members.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you both. Have a great weekend. That concludes the bill hearing HB 343. We'll jump to Delegate Pastor, HB 1213, Baltimore County Sheriff Salary. And if you have a panelist, feel free to bring them up.
Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and members of the committee. I am Delegate Cheryl Pasteur, and I am here this afternoon in support of House Bill 1213, Baltimore County Delegation Bill. The bill is cross-filed by with Senator Ben Brooks. While scrutinizing various positions connected with Baltimore County government, it was discovered that our county sheriff has not received a pay increase in decades. In fact, he is the lowest paid sheriff in the state. We are the third largest county, and he is the lowest paid sheriff in the state of Maryland. Now, even with the increments that he will receive in the next couple of years, he's still going to be on the low end. So with the recommendation of Baltimore County government, Senator Brooks and I were asked to push this bill forward. And the final increase, however, based on a state constitution, will not happen for him unless he runs for sheriff again, because it won't happen until 2026. Please note that the Baltimore County delegation unanimously, not to be outdone by Delegate Munoz, unanimously voted favorably on this bill. So I am asking, for the sake of our sheriff and our delegation, that you give favorable consideration to House Bill 1213. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Amanda Carr. I'm the legislative officer for Baltimore County on behalf of the administration. Thank you so much for considering this bill. It's a simple housekeeping bill that would increase our sheriff's salary. Thank you so much, Delegate Pasteur, for bringing this forward. We did hire a consultant last year and benchmarked with the other counties and realized that we had some deficiencies, as we have all struggled with our recruitment and retention, particularly in public service. We're trying to do better and appreciate a favorable vote. I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this panel? Okay, thank you, Delegate Pasteur. Have a great weekend.
Thank
you. HB
you.
1213. Let's turn to the majority leader, HB 1300. Restriction on use of real property in Montgomery County.
Good afternoon, ENT colleagues. Delegate David Moon with House Bill 1300. This is a local Montgomery County delegation bill. It would invalidate years-old deed restrictions and HOA covenants that attempt to usurp local zoning by banning housing types that are otherwise allowed under Montgomery County zoning. The bill does this for restrictions that were placed on housing lots before 1958, when Montgomery County adopted a comprehensive zoning code, rendering those somewhat of a moot point. The bill also applies prospectively so that we don't recreate this issue. By way of background, Montgomery County has fairly recently adopted by right accessory apartments and doesn't otherwise accept a covenant-based challenge to approving that license. And this would clean the last bit up, which is in HOA parcels. The bill originally came in as to all restrictions on housing types that are otherwise allowed, and that's how it passed out of the delegation. But I do have an amendment coming up that would apply this only to invalidate accessory apartment restrictions.
Okay. Any questions for the leader? Okay. We do have an unfavorable witness. If he's here, Peter Doherty, Potomac Highland Citizens Association. Please go ahead when you're ready, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to testify. And if I understood Delegate Moon just a minute ago, he may have rectified some of our concerns. But I'll go ahead with this at any rate, just to get some of our concerns out there. There's a saying, the devil is in the details. When you look it up on Wikipedia, they say that idiom indicates something that may seem simple, but in fact, the details are complicated and likely to cause problems. In the case of HB 1300, there are a few details that he may have just cleaned some of that up. In terms of public policy, our county council clashes frequently with our county executive over policy, and policies supported by duly enacted county legislation come and go as the tides of political pressure in our county rise and fall. Good, fair, and equitable covenants rarely change. They protect against the loudest voice of public opinion that often drives our county decision makers. Our covenants, formed in 1952, have not changed in over 70 years. They were necessary precisely because we didn't have zoning or comprehensive land planning in 1952. That, by the way, was the year I was born. Our lots are the same today as they were originally laid out. There's been no subdivision. We remain an important part of the county's green wedge buffer for the environment and against overdevelopment. Our neighborhood does have a problem that shifting public policy has exacerbated: lack of public facilities. Our roads are in poor condition. We don't have any public water. Many of our old failing septic systems cannot be replaced. Our repeated attempts to get permission to hook up to available sewer have been thwarted by retroactive changes to water and sewer policy regulations after our applications were filed. Those public policy changes came about because of political pressure. At first glance, HB 1300 seems like a good next step towards supporting Montgomery County's goal of increasing the amount of affordable housing, but negating otherwise fair and equitable covenants removes an important check and balance. The very fact that this change has to be done at the state level is a warning sign. Proceed with great caution and attention to detail. We don't think that's the case with HB 1300. Please give it an unfavorable review.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Okay, thanks for being with us today. That concludes the bill hearing on HB 1300. We'll now turn to HB 812, Delegate Long, Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland Agricultural Development Commission funding.
Right here.
All right. Good afternoon, colleagues, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair Boyce, distinguished members of the committee, Delegate Naraki. For the record, I am Delegate Jeffrey E. Long Jr. Here testifying, asking you for a favorable report and recommendation for House Bill 812, which is the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland Agricultural Development Commission funding. In short, presently, SMATIC, for short, already receives $900,000, which is asking for an additional $100,000 that comes out the CRF, the Cigarette Restitution Fund. Again, I can't emphasize how important and vital the work that SMATIC does. And just also, you may see some unfavorable testimony from the Maryland Department of Health. because they already received $30 million from the CRF and they are afraid of perhaps losing $100,000. But with that, I asked for a favorable report, and I am joined by Ms. Shelby Watson Hampton and the Rural Council of Maryland as well too. So thank you again.
All right, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and delegates, thank you so much for having me. My name is Shelby Watson Hampton, and I am the Director of the Southern Maryland Agricultural Development Commission, known as SMATIC, which is a division of the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland. I'm urging members to support this bill that asks for a permanent and slightly increased funding for the SMATIC Commission, as we play a pivotal role in supporting local farmers, promoting agricultural education, and fostering sustainable practices. Healthy communities start with healthy local food. I especially want to thank the delegates who have sponsored and co-sponsored this bill, Delegate Long, Davis, Harris, T. Morgan, and Delegate Wilson. It's important to note that this is not new funding that SMATIC is seeking. It's current existing funding that comes into the state every year from the Cigarette Restitution Fund, known as the CRF, of which 5% was promised to SMATIC 20 years ago upon their creation during the tobacco buyout. Despite what was written at that time, SMATIC has consistently gotten less than that and currently exists off only $900,000 a year from that fund. The bill asks that SMATIC receive at least $1 million annually or up to the original 5% as promised. Please note that the CRF itself is continual and non-lapsing. It's worth noting that last fiscal year, with just our $900,000 in base funding, SMATIC was able to leverage that to bring in over $3 million additional dollars in grants to the region. SMATIC's success is well proven. In FY23 alone, we grew the Maryland Market Money Program, which is a matching dollar program for low-income families who use SNAP and WIC at the farmers market, to over 60 plus locations and over 720 farmers and producers. While we are mostly regional, that is one of our statewide programs, and it is in every jurisdiction in the state. In addition, the following folks have submitted letters of support or testimony for this bill: the Maryland Farm Bureau, the Rural Maryland Council, the Prince George's County Farm Bureau, several county soil conservation districts, all 3 county commissioners of the 3 lower Southern Maryland counties, and many more across the region. We have submitted letters of support with my written testimony as well, and I thank you so much for your time. I urge you to please support this bill with a favorable amendment.
Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and members of the committee. I am Megan D'Arcy with the Rural Maryland Council. As you may know, we are strongly supportive and work closely with the 5 rural regional councils across the state, one of which is the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland. These councils are valuable due to their impact on the rural economies. We see this particularly with SMATIC, a division of the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland, with their local food impact and providing opportunities for farmers. Local food system development is an important component of the economy and a strategy that is recommended by the USDA Rural Development, as well as the Federal Reserve in terms of improving local economies. As we consider the impact and ability to provide locally produced foods, we are seeing increased demand. Starting in 1992, this market was about $400 million nationally, and now it has risen to over $9 billion and increases about 3% each year. We believe that this is an opportunity to support the local economy, help support our local farmers, and strengthen the local food system in Southern Maryland. We respectfully ask for support of House Bill 812 with a favorable report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have a question from the Vice Chair.
Thank you so much, Delegate Long. I'm looking at the Department of Health's letter. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Can you explain this to me? I don't get it.
I'll let Ms. Hampton go into further detail.
I have not seen the letter.
So I just want to very quickly, it states essentially that, hold on. It's saying I'm just one part of this, but it's many parts. The medical assistance program is the recipient of whatever CRF funds are left over after any other specific outline uses, and the funds are used to offset the state share of the program's provider reimbursements. If the program receives $100,000 less in CRF funds due to an increased allocation to the council, the state would have to use $100,000 in general funds to cover those costs instead.
I can speak to what I know about the Cigarette Restitution Fund and the funding.
Yes.
So the CRF, also known as the Master Settlement Agreement or the tobacco buyout, comes into the state every year. When Governor Glendening took the buyout about 20 years ago, they set it up in Maryland so that only two places, there's only two places that money can go. It can go to the Maryland Department of Health, which is mostly for their cancer screening, smoking cessation, anti-smoking type of programs. And then it could go to the farmers who are impacted by taking a 300-year-old industry of crops out of the region. And so SMATIC was created to help the farmers. Of course, the Department of Health was already in existence. So when the money comes in, it can only go those two places. Roughly, the Department of Health gets about $30 million from the CRF alone, plus their other budgets. SMATIC only gets $900,000 of that CRF, and that is our total funding.
And you mentioned that it was supposed to be 5% of that total amount?
Yes, ma'am. It was supposed to be 5% of the CRF funds that came in every year. And that's written in the original language from the 1999 Tobacco Transition Bill documents, which I have copies of, not with me, but I can send them. And we have never received up to the full 5% of the annual amount that comes in.
Do you have any idea why?
No, ma'am, we have never, and that was before my tenure. But I have members on my commission who have been there since the beginning, and we've had to fight for this funding every year.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Delegate Morgan.
May I interject very quickly, Madam Vice Chair. I've been on that board now for 14 years. And quite frankly, what's happened is that the three lower counties, St. Mary's, Calvert, and Charles, are the ones most tremendously affected by the tobacco buyout. The monies were primarily moved towards Johns Hopkins for cancer research, American Cancer Society, but the 5% that Shelby is talking about there was never allocated down. And they've been cutting and scraping for years just to try to get about 1%, maybe 1.5%. And I think the request that they're making is reasonable. So I'm sorry, it's not. Is that okay? There's my question.
Isn't that so? Any further questions on this bill? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing on HB 812. We were on our last bill, HB 1338, Howard County, Delegate Ziegler. While she's walking up, no one's in trouble. I'm just asking if Delegates Healy, Davis, Addison, Guyton, and Ziegler can meet with me after committee, but no one's in trouble. It's just a meeting, everybody. I didn't send them to the speaker's office. They're sent to my office. Delegate Ziegler, please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Happy Friday, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, long-suffering colleagues on the committee. This is House Bill 1338, and what it does, it's a Howard County local bill. It would decrease the term of office from 5 years to 3 years of a member of the Howard County Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board in order to align with the state board, affectionately known as MELF. Current members would be able to serve out their term, but going forward, it would become a 3-year term. So I respectfully ask for local consideration for this local bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Doring. Oh, that's written. I'm sorry. Any questions? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing. Colleagues, just a quick note on the schedule. Obviously, your subcommittee is going to be meeting, so keep an ear out and an eye out on email for those. On Tuesday, we're going to move bill hearings to 3 p.m. to give subcommittees more time to meet before bill hearings, so between floor and bill hearings. And then we'll have a voting session on Tuesday after the bill hearings. And obviously the schedule next week will continue to evolve given the work we want to get done between now and crossover. With that, subcommittee announcements, Delegate Holmes.
Thank you, Madam, Mr. Chair. I was getting ready to say Madam Speaker. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. HRP is still going to meet at 4 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen, 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Delegate Healy.
Local government is going to meet on Monday at 4 o'clock.
Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Environment Subcommittee will meet next Tuesday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. bright and early.
Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Land Use and Ethics will meet after the floor, whenever that ends, after the floor session on Tuesday. I think we may end up meeting at the same time as Natural Resources. The Vice Chair can tell us. And then, yeah, Sarah's not here. Her subcommittee might meet after us, but we'll probably have some sort of succession going of subcommittees between floor and the full committee hearing on Tuesday, but land use will be first.
One more, Mr. Chair.
And I'll also note transportation, I believe, is also meeting Monday. So transportation will probably meet Monday and Tuesday. So if you're on that subcommittee, keep an eye out. Delegate Holmes.
Yes, and HRP will also meet Monday at 5 p.m. and then again on Wednesday at 4. All right.
Sure. And I'll just fully channel Delegate Love. The Monday Motor Vehicles and Transportation Subcommittee meeting is at 7 p.m. Monday.
Great. So that time of year. Thank you all. Have a great weekend.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Vice Chair.
Oh, no, go.
Madam Vice
I
Chair.
can go after him.
So you should have already gotten a notice, the NRAD committee about 1 o'clock. And if we do have conflicts, best case scenario on Tuesday, we will meet again after hearings because we're not meeting very long. I mean, we won't have a long hearing. So Tuesday, so 1 o'clock on Tuesday. I know there may be some overlap with land. No. So yeah, 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock on Tuesday. We don't finish. We will meet again after hearings.
Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And even though we're meeting Tuesday morning, we're also going to meet at our normal time Wednesday after bill hearings. So
Great. And currently we have no bill hearing scheduled for Wednesday, so you might be able to meet early.
oh, even earlier then. Great.
So with that, clearly the message is keep an eye on your email because this stuff is changing a lot.